Howdy folks, Mr. K here with a video on density. Now, density it's how much mass, it's the amount of mass of a substance, the amount of mass a substance has in a given volume. It's how much something weighs and how much space it takes up. That's basically the cut and dry version of it. I'll say that again one more time. It's how much something weighs in the amount of space it takes up. We do have a mathematical formula, a very simple formula we use for calculating density. It basically shows the ratio that I'm talking about there. The density of an object is equal to the amount of mass it has per or divided by the volume. And we talked about this already. Typically, mass is measured in grams. It's the number of grams that an object has divided by its volume, which we typically measure in milliliters. So density's units would have to be grams per milliliter. And density for a given object is or a substance, density is constant for the substance. Water's density does not change. Iron's density does not change. You can have different amounts of iron, but they would all have the same mass if you have the same volume. The ratio is always the same for density. Let's practice doing some calculations. So, here's a simple example problem. The density at 30 degrees Celsius of 110 milliliters of a liquid that has a mass of 2.05 grams. So, you could remember that, the formula density is equal to mass over volume, or you could remember my handy little house trick. So draw a house. Give this house an attic and 2 rooms. In one room lives density, in the attic lives volume, and in the other room next door to density lives volume. So when you read this, it says density is equal to the mass who lives over the volume. That's a simple way to remember it. Remember, if anything, remember the house. If you can't remember the formula, remember the house. So, let's try solving this. So let's read again. What is the density? So, that tells us we don't know the density. At 30 degrees Celsius, temperature, I don't see anything in here mentioning temperature in the formula, of 11 milliliters. So milliliters is our unit of volume. So we have 11.0 milliliters of a liquid that has a mass of 2.05 grams. Mass, grams. 2.05 grams. So we come down here. So I'm going to come down here and just, plug and chug. Density is equal to the mass, which was 2.05 grams. Always write your units. 2.05 grams over the volume, 11.0 milliliters. If I plug and chug in my calculator, I get, let's see here, 0.186366364. Wow, we're not going to use all those numbers. Remember, in science class, we care about significant figures, and there are rules for using significant figures, and they matter when you take the test. So, right here, my 2.05 has 1, 2, 3 significant figures. 11.0 has 1, 2, 3 significant figures. So my answer needs 3 significant figures. So I'm going to ignore all of this and just round it to 0.186 grams per milliliter. Let's try another one, but it's not going to be as simple this time. So this one says I have a sample of seawater. So what is the mass? What is the mass? So already tells us what is the mass. We don't know the mass of a 300 milliliter sample. So we got a volume, 300.00 milliliters. Remember, I have to write it all the way out. All these numbers are significant figures. Go ahead and let's count the significant figures right now. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 significant figures there. So I have a volume of 300.0 milliliters and a density of 1.025 grams per milliliter. What is the mass? So remember, density is constant, so no matter what volume or mass I have, the ratio will be the same. So if I have a density and I have a volume, I can easily figure out the mass. Oh, forgot to count my significant figures. 1, 2, 3, 4. Since the density has a lesser amount, I'm going to have an answer with 4. Now, let's go back to our little house. Remember that density lives next door to volume and mass lives in the attic. So when I read it this way, mass is equal to density times volume. They're next to each other. So all I got to do is I got to plug in my density, 1.025 grams per milliliter, times my volume of 300.00 milliliters. I plug it all in and I get that my mass has to equal 307.5 grams. Remember, mass is, the unit of mass is grams. See, so that goes there. And I had 4 significant figures in my starting amounts. 4 was my lesser amount of significant figures, so my answer needs 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're good there. So it worked out this time. Remember the little house. Density is mass over volume. It will help you rearrange the problem many ways. One more thing to talk about with density. Density not only dictates the amount of mass something has per volume, it also tells us how things will arrange themselves when mixed together. It always works this way. The one with the highest or the lowest density is at the top, and the highest is always at the bottom. So given my chart up here, things would arrange these substances when mixed together would arrange themselves with the highest density on the bottom and the lowest density at the top. So let's go from top to bottom. My lowest would be the gas. Then coming down, I would have my oil. Oh, sorry, I missed one, not oil. I'd have the alcohol, which is my next lowest, or my next highest. My next highest would be the oil. And then I would have my water and my sand. Remember, I arranged when you mix stuff together, they arrange with the highest density at the bottom and the lowest density at the top. That's it for density, folks. I'll see you in class.